Hi everybody. So in the last class we discussed under the chapter ecosystem, we discussed plant succession. Okay. So succession is the event where there will be a gradual changes occurs with respect to the species composition in a given area. Okay, that is the succession. At the same time, we learned one more thing like sear. Okay, so sear is the sequential changes occurs with respect to the plant communities in a given area. So if it is a changes with respect to community, it is called as a sear. If it is a change with respect to species composition, it is called as succession. Okay. So depending upon where the succession occurs, the succession may be xeric or hydric in nature. Or in another way, succession are of two types like primary succession and secondary succession. So primary succession takes very long time. It takes 1,000 or million years together, whereas secondary succession is very fast when compared to primary succession. In primary succession, the time it takes very long time because of the formation of soil. The soil formation itself need very long time. Then the plant communities occupy the area. And finally, in ultimate climax community is reached. The climax community is nothing but the stage where forest is going to be formed. So nowadays we can see this forest. So these forests are the products of this succession which takes place since 1,000 years together. Okay. So, and in each type of succession, whether it may be xeric or hydric, in both the case, ultimately they reach the stage called a mesic stage. So in xeric there is no water, but ultimately minimum amount of water stage is reached. In the hydric also, more water is there, but ultimately it reaches the minimum amount of water. That is called a mesic stage. So xeric and hydric, both are ultimately reach the stage called mesic stage. Okay. So the organisms which are first appear in a succession, in a primary succession, are called as pioneers, called as a pioneer species. In case of xeric hydra, in the xeric succession, lichens are considered as the pioneers. At the same for hydric or hydrarch. Okay. For hydrarch succession, phytoplanktons are the pioneering organisms. So after that, few organisms later, communities is going to be changed, and ultimately climax state is reached. In case of xeric succession, after lichens, bryophytes are there. Bryophytes will appear. After bryophytes, small grasses, then herbs, then small trees, then big trees are appeared. Ultimately forest stage is reached. In the same way, in hydrarch succession, the first appearing organisms were phytoplanktons. Next, floating angiosperms are appeared, then rooted angiosperms, then reed swamp stage, then marsh meadow stage, and finally scrubby jungle or forest state is reached. So this is how the succession takes place. This succession, sometimes natural calamities may cause the plant vegetation completely vanished out from the area. Then again succession begins. So such type of successions are called as secondary successions. So these secondary successions are very fast when compared to the primary succession. Okay. So those are all the things we learned in the last class. Okay. So today in this class, let us discuss one more concept, that is nutrient cycling. So if any system is said to be ecosystem, okay, it should have some components. Okay. So what are those components? Components of ecosystem. Component of ecosystem are, first thing is producers. Producers should be there. Then consumers should be there. Retrievers should be there. Energy flow should be there. Then nutrient cycling should be there. nutrient cycling. Okay, so ಇಷ್ಟು ಇದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನ ಎಕೋಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ದಿಸ್ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸರ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಕನ್ಸ್ಯೂಮರ್ಸ್ ಇವೆಲ್ಲದನ್ನು ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಕ್ಲಬ್ ಟುಗೆದರ್ ಟು ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ದ ಮೇನ್ ಕಂಪೋನೆಂಟ್ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ. Productivity, this detritivores comes under decomposition. Then energy flow. Energy flow and nutrient cycling. So these are the important components of ecosystem. Okay, so productivity, primary productivity and the secondary productivity we discussed already. Then decomposition process we discussed already. Then energy flow we discussed, and finally we are at the stage called nutrient cycling. So if any system is said to be an ecosystem, it should have these components. Okay, so productivity means the amount of biomass accumulated in producers as well as consumers. So if the productivity or the amount of biomass accumulated in producers is called as primary productivity, in consumers it is called as a secondary productivity. So together that forms the component called productivity. So productivity, decomposition, energy flow and nutrient cycling. So decomposition is a process where it is essential for this nutrient cycling. So decomposition has several steps. It begins with the detritus. When the organism is going to dead, the detritus undergo decomposition by step process. So the first step is breaking of detritus into fragment called fragmentation, then leaching, catabolism, mineralization, we studied that. So the process called decomposition. And energy flow is always follow one law called as a 10% law. So from each trophic level energy is get transferred, only 10% is transferred and 90% is get lost in the form of heat. That is energy flow. And finally come to this nutrient cycling. Okay, so nutrient cycling, why it is important? So in the first year you will learn why that nutrients are essential for the living organism. So without that nutrient organism's functionality cannot be occurs properly, since all the enzymes, metabolism reactions requires the enzymes, and the enzymes are nothing but the proteins. So proteins are synthesized during metabolic reactions. So metabolic reactions means all the nutrients are essential. By using that nutrients only biomolecules are going to be formed. So without that biomolecules, organism cannot survive. So nutrients are very much essential. So many kinds of nutrients, you already learned 17 different types of nutrients are required for the plants. In the first year you learned that. Okay, and all those nutrients are should be either absorbed from the atmosphere or from the soil. So here both the soil as well as atmosphere, they act as a reservoirs for the nutrients. Okay, atmosphere and soil. Okay, so these are act as a reservoirs for nutrients. So whatever the nutrient it may be, organisms can get it either through atmosphere or soil. And remember this the nutrient from atmosphere and soil can be get accumulated in the plant, and all the animals are depends on the plant for that nutrient. Okay, so ಯಾವುದೇ ಆರ್ಗಾನಿಸಮ್ ಅಂತ ಎಸ್ಪೆಷಲಿ ಅನಿಮಲ್ಸ್, ಎಲ್ಲೋ ಅನಿಮಲ್ಸ್ಗಳಿಗೂ ಆ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಯೆಂಟ್ಸನ್ನು ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟಾಗಿ ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋ ಕೆಪಾಸಿಟಿ ಇರಲ್ಲ. ದಟ್ ಡಿಪೆಂಡ್ಸ್ ಆನ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್, ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಅಬ್ಸಾರ್ಬ್ ದ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಯೆಂಟ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದ ಸಾಯಿಲ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಅಕ್ಯುಮುಲೇಟೆಡ್ ಇನ್ ದೆಮ್. ವೆನ್ ದ ಆರ್ಗಾನಿಸಮ್ ಫೀಡ್ ಆನ್ ದ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್, ದಟ್ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಯೆಂಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಫರ್ಡ್ ಟು ದಟ್ ಆರ್ಗಾನಿಸಮ್. ಸೊ ಲೈಕ್ ದಟ್ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ಲಿ ಆರ್ indirectly all the animals are depends on plants for their nutrient requirements. ಎಲ್ಲ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಯೆಂಟ್ಸ್ಗಳು ಸಪೋಸ್ ನೀವು ಓದಿದ್ರಿ ಮ್ಯಾಕ್ರೋನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಯೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಮತ್ತು ಮೈಕ್ರೋನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಯೆಂಟ್ಸ್. ಮ್ಯಾಕ್ರೋನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಯೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರಲ್ ಕಂಪೋನೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಮೈಕ್ರೋನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಯೆಂಟ್ಸು ಎನ್ಸೈಮ್ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟೀಸ್ನ ಪ್ರಮೋಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಎಲ್ಲ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಯೆಂಟ್ಸ್ಗೂ ಸೋರ್ಸು ಐದರ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಸಾಯಿಲ್ ಆರ್ ಅಟ್ಮಾಸ್ಫಿಯರ್. Okay, so based on which one is the reservoir for nutrient, the nutrient cycles may be of two types. If atmosphere is the reservoir, atmosphere is the reservoir. Atmosphere in the nutrients na tagota idre, such nutrient cycling, atmosphere is the reservoir. That nutrient cycling is called as gaseous nutrient cycling. Gaseous nutrient cycle. If a soil is the reservoir, if soil is the reservoir, it is called as sediment nutrient cycling. Sediment nutrient cycle, or it is also called as biogeochemical nutrient cycle. Okay, so biogeochemical, living organism. Geo refers to either it refers to earth or soil or atmosphere. Okay, so we are going to use the term cycle. Why, what is it, a cycle? Why it is called as a cycle? So whatever the nutrient is, when it is suppose if it is in the atmosphere, it is get absorbed by the organisms, then it is again reached into the atmosphere in different forms or in the same form. That's why it is forms the cycle. So cycling of that nutrient forms the gaseous or sedimentary cycle. Okay. So now come to the definition then. What is nutrient cycle? So nutrient cycle is nothing but it is the cycling of the nutrients through the various components of ecosystem is called as nutrient cycling. Okay, in simple terms, movement of nutrients in various components of ecosystem forms the nutrient cycle. Okay, so nutrient cycling is a movement of nutrients in various components of ecosystem. See there, various components. So this components includes producers, consumers, decomposition. ನೋಡಿ, ಇಷ್ಟು ಆರ್ಗಾನಿಸಮ್ಸ್ಗಳ ಹೆಲ್ಪಿಂದ ಆ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಯೆಂಟ್ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಸೈಕ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಲೈಕ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸರ್ಸ್ ಟು ಕನ್ಸ್ಯೂಮರ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಕನ್ಸ್ಯೂಮರ್ಸ್ ಟು ಡಿಕಂಪೋಸರ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸರ್ಸ್ ಟು ಡಿಕಂಪೋಸರ್ಸ್ ಇಟ್ ಗೆಟ್ ಸೈಕಲ್ಡ್. ಓಕೆ, ಇಟ್ ಶೋಸ್ ದ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್ಲಿ ಆರ್ ದ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿಸ್ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಯೆಂಟ್ ವಿತ್ various component including biotic and abiotic components. The movement of nutrients in various components like biotic and abiotic components in an ecosystem forms the nutrient cycle. Okay. Or this sediment cycle can also be directly called as sediment nutrient cycle. Instead we can call it as sediment cycle, okay, or sedimentary cycle we can call. Okay, so this is about the definition of nutrient cycling. So without this nutrient cycling, organisms cannot get the nutrients, and sometimes some nutrients they are get sediments and settles in the soil and they cannot be movement, shows the movement. Okay, so that is also possible, like some carbon is get sedimented in the soil and it cannot be absorbed by the plants again. That is not available for the organisms further. Okay, so that is not available as a movement nutrient. Okay, so come to the nutrient cycling. So certain amount of nutrient is present in trophic level. So you studied that trophic level in the previous classes. So it is a trophic level. So trophic level consisting of first trophic level, which is producer, from producers to primary consumer to secondary consumer to tertiary consumer. So here the producer occupies the first trophic level. It occupies the first trophic level, and the primary consumers occupy second trophic level, and the secondary consumers occupies third trophic level, and tertiary consumer occupy fourth trophic level. So these are the different trophic levels or different trophics we call. In a given time, at any given time, certain amount of nutrients are present in a particular trophic level. ಒಂದು ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಪೀರಿಯಡ್ನ ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಈಗ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸರ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ ಸಡನ್ ಅಮೌಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಯೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಆಲ್ವೇಸ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್. ಅಂದರೆ ಈಗ ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸನ್ನು ತೊಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ ದೇ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ದ ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ ಡೈಆಕ್ಸೈಡ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದ ಅಟ್ಮಾಸ್ಫಿಯರ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಅದರ್ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಯೆಂಟ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದ ಸಾಯಿಲ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಫಾಸ್ಫರಸ್ ಲೆಟ್ಸ್ ಸೇ. ಸೊ ಎರಡನ್ನು ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ ಸಮ್ ಅಮೌಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಯೆಂಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್. ಓಕೆ, ಅದೇ ಥರ ಆ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟನ್ನು ಕನ್ಸ್ಯೂಮ್ ಮಾಡಿರೋ ಕನ್ಸ್ಯೂಮರ್ಸಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಒಂದು ಗಿವನ್ ಟೈಮ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದಿಷ್ಟು ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಯೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. Okay, such nutrient which is present at each trophic level in a given time forms the standing state. So it is called standing state. The amount of nutrients present in each trophic level in a given time. In a given time is called as standing state. Okay, just you can recall you studied one more point, standing crop. In the previous classes we studied that a standing crop. So standing crop is the amount of biomass present in each trophic level in a given time is a standing crop. But standing state is the amount of nutrients. So standing state is for nutrient, standing crop is for biomass. Don't get confused. Standing crop amount of biomass, standing state amount of nutrient. Okay, present in each trophic level in a given time. So this nutrient or this standing state transferred from one trophic level to another trophic level. Okay, it shows the movement, and when this organisms at this different trophic level, when they are going to dead, ella organisms ಗಳು ultimately they become dead. When they dead, that nutrients are transferred through decomposition. Decomposition ಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು they release the nutrient either into atmosphere or into soil. Okay, so hope you got it. So at a given time, at each trophic level, certain amount of nutrients are present always. That nutrients are transferred from one trophic level to another trophic level. That shows the movement. Ultimately, when the organisms present at these different trophic levels are dead, that nutrients are reached either to atmosphere or to soil or earth through process called decomposition. So during decomposition, these nutrients are again released, and these nutrients are again absorbed by the producers or absorbed by the consumers either from the soil or from the atmosphere. So like this, nutrient is get cycled always. Okay. So as I already discussed, the nutrient cyclings are of two types: a sedimentary cycle and a gaseous cycle. If the reservoir is in the atmosphere, it is called as gaseous cycle. Okay. So let me take on let me discuss that gaseous cycle. It's called as gaseous cycle or gaseous nutrient cycle. Both are same. Gaseous cycle or gaseous nutrient cycle. Then what are those nutrients which are absorbed by the plants or organisms through atmosphere? ಯಾವ್ಯಾವುದನ್ನ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬಹುದು ಅಟ್ಮಾಸ್ಫಿಯರ್ ಇಂದ? So in the first year you already learned about nitrogen. Okay, So nitrogen, abundant nitrogen is present in the atmosphere, but no organisms, especially eukaryotes, have the ability to absorb that nitrogen directly. And nitrogen is a very important component for all the biomolecules like DNA, RNA, then nucleotides, energy source, chlorophyll, everywhere you can, and amino acids, proteins, enzymes, you find this nitrogen. So nitrogen is required in abundant quantity, but no organisms have the ability to utilize that nitrogen directly, gaseous nitrogen directly. Only prokaryotes have that ability. That prokaryotes converts this nitrogen into ammonia through a process called nitrogen fixation. So only prokaryotes have that ability because they have that nitrogenase enzyme. Okay. So like this, nitrogen is get fixed into ammonia. It is converted into, in the plants the process occurs, it's converted amino acid to protein. So like that, nitrogen is get cycled. At the same time, when the organism is dead, that nitrogen, organic nitrogen, converted into ammonia. So let me brief it, then you can understand it better. So the organic nitrogen, and the organic nitrogen means the nitrogen present in the living organisms in any biomolecule form. This organic nitrogen, when it is dead during decomposition, it converted into ammonia during decomposition. This ammonia is converted into nitrite, then converted into nitrate. Okay, nitrate plants absorb ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ. In the plants, this nitrate is utilized to form the amino acid into protein. So this protein is consumed by animals. So animals adana consume ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. When the animal is going to dead, again decomposition takes place and the cycling takes place. At the same time, plants also have the ability to convert that nitrogen, atmospheric nitrogen. This nitrate, some part is converted into atmospheric nitrogen through a process called denitrification. Okay, and this nitrogen is with the help of rhizobium. With the help of rhizobium, plant utilize it in the form of ammonia. So this is how nitrogen cycle takes place. Okay, ನೋಡಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಅಟ್ಮಾಸ್ಫಿಯರ್ ಇಂದ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿರುತ್ತೆ with the help of rhizobium and several nitrogen fixing organisms. That nitrogen is converted amino acid into protein. When the organism is consumed on the animal is consumed on that plant, that protein or amino acid or nitrogen is transferred here. That organism, when the animal is going to dead, at the same time plant is going to dead, that organic nitrogen is converted into ammonia, then nitrate, and nitrate then to nitrogen again. ನೋಡಿ nitrogen ಈ ರೀತಿ ಸೈಕಲ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. Okay, so here the nitrogen transfer or movement, nitrogen shows the movement from various components like producers, consumers and decomposers. Like this, it shows the cycling movement. Okay. So here the conversion of nitrogen into this ammonia is called nitrogen fixation, whereas conversion of this organic nitrogen into ammonia is called as ammonification. Ammonification, nitrification, denitrification, like that, nitrogen is get cycled. You studied this in your first year. Okay, and in this class, in the second year, you have another gaseous cycle, that is carbon. Okay, so nitrogen and carbon are example for this gaseous cycle. So since you already learned this nitrogen in the first year, in this class you are going to study this carbon cycle. Okay, so let's discuss the carbon cycle. Simple. This carbon cycle. Okay, as you know that carbon is very essential nutrient. Okay, very essential nutrient, because 49% of dry weight of organisms contains carbon. Organism na dry weight ನಲ್ಲಿ 49% ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. So along with the carbon, you know, CHO and N, they form the building blocks. they form the building block. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ ಈಸ್ ಒನ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಕಂಪೋನೆಂಟ್. ಓಕೆ, ನೀವು ಯಾವುದೇ ಆರ್ಗ್ಯಾನಿಕ್ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯೂಲ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಆಲ್ ಆರ್ಗ್ಯಾನಿಕ್ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯೂಲ್ಸ್ or organic substances, organic molecules, they are made up of carbon. ಓಕೆ, ಗ್ಲುಕೋಸ್ ತಗೋತೀರಾ C6H12O6 ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಪ್ರೋಟೀನ್ ತಗೊತೀರಾ ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, DNA ತಗೋತೀರಾ, RNA ತಗೊಳ್ತೀರಾ, ಯಾವುದೇ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್, ಯಾವುದೇ ಆರ್ಗ್ಯಾನಿಕ್ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯೂಲ್ ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ, ಬಯೋಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯೂಲ್ ವಿಚ್ ಇಸ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಇನ್ ಲಿವಿಂಗ್ ಆರ್ಗ್ಯಾನಿಸಮ್, ಆಲ್ ದೋಸ್ ಬಯೋಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯೂಲ್ಸ್ ದೇ ಆರ್ ಕಂಟೈನ್ ಕಾರ್ಬನ್. ಓಕೆ, then what is the source of carbon for all living organisms? ಇಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದರೆ ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಅದು ಕಾರ್ಬನ್? ಸೊ ಐ ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ನೋನ್ ದ ರಿಸರ್ವಾಯರ್ ಫಾರ್ ದಿಸ್ ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ ಈಸ್ ಅಟ್ಮಾಸ್ಫಿಯರ್ ಇಟ್ ಸೆಲ್ಫ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ atmosphere contains about 0.03 to 0.04% of carbon is in the form of carbon dioxide. 0.03 to 0.04% ಅಷ್ಟು ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ in the form of carbon dioxide. Okay, this carbon dioxide CO2 is fixed by ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ಗಳು ಫಿಕ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಥ್ರೂ ಎ ಪ್ರೋಸೆಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಫಿಕ್ಸ್ಡ್ ಬೈ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಬೈ photosynthesis. Okay, if you recall the process of photosynthesis where carbon dioxide is get hydrated, okay, so called reduction reaction, okay, hydrated to form glucose. So CO ಮತ್ತೆ H ಸೇರ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ to form C6H12O6 is going to form. Here carbon dioxide is get reduced with addition of proton to make it glucose. Okay, so glucose is formed through a process called photosynthesis. The process of formation of glucose by using carbon dioxide and water is photosynthesis. So this glucose is nothing but that carbohydrate. This carbohydrate is the source of carbon. The carbohydrate is the source of carbon. ಎಲ್ಲ ಆರ್ಗ್ಯಾನಿಸಮ್ಸ್ಗಳು ಫುಡ್ಡನ್ನು ತಗೊಳ್ತಾವಲ್ಲ ಬೈ ಕನ್ಸ್ಯೂಮಿಂಗ್ ಆನ್ ದ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ವೇರ್ ದೇ ಗೆಟ್ ದಿಸ್ ಕಾರ್ಬನ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ವಿ ಕೆನಾಟ್ ಗೆಟ್ ದ ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ಲಿ. ನಾವು ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ನೇ ಅಟ್ಮಾಸ್ಫಿಯರ್ ಇರೋ ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ನ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಳಲ್ಲ. ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಡೂ ದಟ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದೇ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಫರ್ ದಟ್ ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ ಇನ್ ಟು ಕಾರ್ಬೋಹೈಡ್ರೇಟ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್. ವಿ ಕನ್ಸ್ಯೂಮ್ ದಟ್ ಕಾರ್ಬೋಹೈಡ್ರೇಟ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ವಿ ಗೆಟ್ ದ ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ ಸೋರ್ಸ್. ಓಕೆ, of course during respiration again this carbon dioxide is released into the atmosphere. Okay, so that helps in cycling. And how much carbon is fixed annually ಅಂತ ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ 4 into 10 raised to 13 kg of CO2 is fixed by plants annually. ನೋಡಿ, ವರ್ಷಕ್ಕೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ಗಳು ಸೇರಿ 4 into 10 raised to 13 kg ಆಫ್ ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ ಡೈಆಕ್ಸೈಡ್ನ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ ಡ್ಯೂರಿಂಗ್ ದಟ್ ಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ, ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ. ಸೊ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ 4 into 10 raised to 13 kg ಆಫ್ ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ ಡೈಆಕ್ಸೈಡ್ ಆನ್ಯುವಲಿ. ವರ್ಷಕ್ಕೆ ಅಷ್ಟು ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ ಡೈಆಕ್ಸೈಡ್ನ ಫಿಕ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಅಷ್ಟು ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ ಡೈಆಕ್ಸೈಡ್ ದೇ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ಡ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಆಸ್ ಅ ಬಯೋಮಾಸ್. ಓಕೆ, ಇನ್ ಡಿಫರೆಂಟ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಗ್ಲುಕೋಸ್ ಇಟ್ ಗೆಟ್ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ಡ್. ಕಾರ್ಬೋಹೈಡ್ರೇಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಕಾರ್ಬೋಹೈಡ್ರೇಟ್ ಡಿಫರೆಂಟ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಅಂದರೆ ಅಟ್ಮಾಸ್ಫಿಯರಲ್ಲಿ ಲೆಸ್ ದ್ಯಾನ್ 1%, ಓಕೆ, ಓನ್ಲಿ ಲೆಸ್ ದ್ಯಾನ್ 1% ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ ಡೈಆಕ್ಸೈಡ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಓಕೆ, ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ರಿಮೈನಿಂಗ್ ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ ಡೈಆಕ್ಸೈಡ್ ಇಸ್ ಡಿಸಾಲ್ವ್ಡ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಡಿಸಾಲ್ವ್ಡ್ ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ ಡೈಆಕ್ಸೈಡ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಅಟ್ಮಾಸ್ಫಿಯರ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಹೋಪ್ ಯು ಗಾಟ್ ದ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್. ಅಟ್ಮಾಸ್ಫಿಯರಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ ಡೈಆಕ್ಸೈಡ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ನಲ್ಲಿ 0.03 to 0.04% ಅಷ್ಟು ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಓಕೆ, and it is less than 1% obviously, and most of the carbon is present in the form of dissolved carbon dioxide. ಎಷ್ಟಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಅರೌಂಡ್ 71% ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ present in the water as dissolved carbon dioxide. Dissolved carbon dioxide ಫಾರ್ಮಲ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಇದು 71% in the water, 1% in the atmosphere, and remaining carbon present in the sediment form. So the carbon which is present in the sediment, carbon present in the sediment not involved in cycling. ಈ ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ ಸೈಕ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇನ್ವಾಲ್ವ್ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಓನ್ಲಿ ದಟ್ ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ ವಿಚ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಇನ್ ದ ವಾಟರ್ ಆಸ್ ವೆಲ್ as in the atmosphere is get cycled. Okay, so only sometimes this carbon which is present in the sediment is get recycled, very rarely. Okay, in most of the time the gaseous as well as water, the carbon dioxide present in the water is get cycled. Okay, so let represent this cycle in a diagrammatic manner, so we can understand it well then. Okay, ಒಂದು ರೆಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡೋಣ gaseous cycle ಹೇಗಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತೇಳಿ. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಅ ಸಿಂಪ್ಲಿಫೈಡ್ ಮಾಡೆಲ್ ಆಫ್ ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ ಸೈಕಲ್. ಓಕೆ, ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಸಿಂಪ್ಲಿಫೈಡ್ ಮಾಡೆಲ್ ಆಫ್ ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ ಡೈಆಕ್ಸೈಡ್ cycle. Okay. So here carbon dioxide is present in the atmosphere. So this is the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Okay, and some amount of this carbon dioxide is present in the water also. So that is CO2 in water as a dissolved form. Okay, so let me deal with this carbon dioxide present in the water first. So this carbon dioxide is absorbed by the phytoplanktons. From phytoplanktons to fishes. Okay, so when the fish is dead, that is decompose. When they are going to decompose, CO2 is released. Again CO2 is released, and some part, the phytoplanktons in the some CO2, it forms the sediment. Okay, so if you recall the diatomaceous earth ಏನಿದೆ ಅದು phytoplanktons ಇಂದ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ, like diatoms, ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಕೆಳಗಡೆ ಸೆಟ್ಲ್ ಆಗಿಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ ಸಾಯಿಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ as a sediment. It is do not involved in that cycling process. Okay, so ಈ carbon dioxide ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಬಂತು? Again this carbon dioxide came from atmosphere itself. Atmosphere ಇಂದ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಆಗಿರೋ ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ ಡೈಆಕ್ಸೈಡ್ ಡಿಸಾಲ್ವ್ಡ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸೈಕ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಒನ್ ಕೈಂಡ್. ಓಕೆ, then again fish in the respiration during respiration carbon dioxide is again released. So like this in the water this cycling process takes place like this. And this carbon dioxide, atmosphere alirunta carbon dioxide, it is absorbed by the plants. So ಇದು plants ಇಂದ ಅಬ್ಸಾರ್ಬ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. So carbon dioxide is absorbed by the plants. Okay, they fixed through photosynthesis. Okay, so from the plants this carbon dioxide is transferred to animals. Okay, and these animals release the carbon dioxide into the atmosphere through respiration. Okay, suppose ಈಗ plants ಕೂಡ ರೆಸ್ಪೈರ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. So whatever the amount of carbon dioxide released by the plants during respiration is utilized for photosynthesis there itself. So there is no release of carbon dioxide from plants to atmosphere because they need carbon dioxide. ಅದೇನು ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ ಡೈಆಕ್ಸೈಡ್ ಅದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಯುಟಿಲೈಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ ಫಾರ್ ಫೋಟೋಸಿಂಥಸಿಸ್. ಓಕೆ, when these plants and animals are dead, these plants and animals when they are become detritus ಆದಾಗ ಒಂದಿಷ್ಟು ಡಿಕಂಪೋಸಿಷನ್ ಟೈಮ್ನಲ್ಲಿ CO2 ರಿಲೀಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. During decomposition, carbon dioxide is released into the atmosphere. Okay, so plants forms the fossil fuel. They forms the fossil fuel ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. So fossil fuel ನ ಬರ್ನ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ, when the fossil fuel is burnt, when the fossil fuel is burnt, carbon dioxide is released again. And one more way the plants can be used as fuels, that is fuel wood. When we burn this fuel wood, carbon dioxide is released into the atmosphere again. Okay, so this fuel would again undergo decomposition. Ella fuel wood alla ಕೆಲವೊಂದು fuel wood decomposition ಆದಮೇಲೆ carbon dioxide is released again. Okay, so this is how simplified model of carbon dioxide cycle occurs in the nature. So naturally ಈ ರೀತಿ simplified form ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಡೀತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ ಡೈಆಕ್ಸೈಡ್ ಸೈಕಲ್. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಸೆಡಿಮೆಂಟಲ್ಲಿ ಸೆಟಲ್ ಆಗಿರುವಂಥದ್ದು ಏನಿದೆ, ದಿಸ್ ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ ಡೈಆಕ್ಸೈಡ್ ವಿಚ್ ಇಸ್ ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ ವಿಚ್ ಇಸ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಸೆಡಿಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಫಾರ್ಮಿಂದ ಸೆಡಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಗೋದು ತುಂಬ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಸೆಡಿಮೆಂಟೇಷನ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಹೌ ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ ಡೈಆಕ್ಸೈಡ್ cycle takes place. So here this carbon dioxide present in the water, it cycled there itself. Okay, yeah, so this is how carbon dioxide cycles takes place in the atmosphere. So this is an example for gaseous cycle. And one more example for this gaseous cycle is nitrogen. You are already learned that in the first year. Okay, so hope you understand the carbon dioxide cycle. So next is sedimentary cycle. Okay, so next is sedimentary cycle. ಈ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಯೆಂಟ್ ಸೈಕ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಸೆಡಿಮೆಂಟರಿ ಸೈಕಲ್. ಸೆಡಿಮೆಂಟರಿ ಸೈಕಲ್ ಯಾವಾಗ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದರೆ, ಇಫ್ ದ ರಿಸರ್ವಾಯರ್ ಆಫ್ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಯೆಂಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಸಾಯಿಲ್. ಆ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಯೆಂಟ್ನ ರಿಸರ್ವಾಯರು ಸಾಯಿಲ್ ಆಗಿದ್ರೆ ಈ ಸೆಡಿಮೆಂಟರಿ ಸೈಕಲ್ ರನ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಫಾರ್ ದಿಸ್ ಸೆಡಿಮೆಂಟರಿ ಸೈಕಲ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಸಲ್ಫರ್, ಫಾಸ್ಫರಸ್, magnesium. Okay, so you can give so many example macromolecules for that. You can give like calcium, okay, potassium, etc. So these are example for sedimentary cycle, because the reservoir for all these things is soil indane idu cycling agbekagutte. So that is the reason why it is called as sedimentary cycle. And you people, you need to study this phosphorus cycle as an example for sedimentary cycle with a little detail, with a diagrammatic representation. So phosphorus is an important component of nutrients, is an important nutrient of a living organism, because this phosphorus is involved in so many organic molecules. So phosphorus is energy related molecule present in illelirutte. Just if you recall the first year chapter you studied in the biomolecular chapter, as well as the mineral nutrition chapter, you studied that it is present in the membrane, it is present in the ATP. Okay, it is present in the phospholipids, present in the lipid as phospholipid. Is present in the nucleic acid. Okay, so organisms need more phosphorus for cell division because it is a component of nucleic acid like DNA and RNA. Even for protein synthesis, RNA is involved, that RNA which contains this phosphate, okay, as a sugar phosphate backbone it is present. So ishtu purpose gagi we need organisms need phosphorus. So illirutte phosphorus andre this phosphorus present in the soil. So this phosphorus, how it get cycled, or how it transferred from different components, how it move in the different components andre from the soil. From the soil it get absorbed by the plants, from plants to consumers, during decomposition again into the soil, during decomposition. So this is how phosphorus cycled, okay, in the nature. Okay, so let me give it in a diagrammatic manner, simplified manner. So soil phosphorus is present in the form of rock phosphate, okay. Phosphate is present in the form of rock, so let me write it as a rock phosphate. Okay, so whenever the process called a weathering of rock takes place, this weathering of rock releases the phosphate into the soil, okay. So that phosphate dissolved in the water and forms the soil solution. It forms the soil solution. So this solution ಅಂದರೆ ವಾಟರಲ್ಲಿ ಡಿಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಆಗಿ ಸಾಯಿಲ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಸೆಟಲ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ ಫಾಸ್ಫೇಟ್, ಓಕೆ. ದಟ್ ಸಾಯಿಲ್ ಸೊಲ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಈಸ್ ಅಬ್ಸಾರ್ಬ್ಡ್ ಬೈ ದ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸರ್ಸ್, ಗೆಟ್ ಅಬ್ಸಾರ್ಬ್ಡ್ ಬೈ ದ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸರ್ಸ್, ಓಕೆ. ಸೊ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸರ್ಸ್ ಅದನ್ನು ಅಬ್ಸಾರ್ಬ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ತವೆ, ಓಕೆ. ಸೊ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸರ್ಸಿಂದ ಇಟ್ ರೀಚ್ಸ್ the consumer. Producers in the consumer ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. When the consumer or plants both are dead, it become detritus. So it become detritus. When they become detritus, is again reached into the soil as a soil solution, okay. So this is how the phosphate are cycled, okay. And here one more important thing you need to notice is the conversion of phosphate into phosphorus. Rock phosphate into phosphate. This process is also carried out by microorganisms. So two groups of microorganisms like bacteria and fungi, both are involved in the conversion of this rock phosphate into phosphate. So those bacteria are called as phosphate solubilizing bacteria, okay. Phosphate solubilizing bacteria, PSB ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಅದೇ ತರ fungi phosphate solubilizing fungi, phosphate solubilizing fungi, PSF ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ, okay. So if you recall that microbes in human welfare chapter, that glomus, okay, as a biofertilizer ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ fungi ನ. So glomus helps in solubilizing this rock phosphate and convert them into phosphate form, that helps in absorption of phosphate, okay. And mycorrhizal association is helpful for the plants in absorbing the phosphate we told, okay. Those fungi are called phosphate solubilizing fungi. So this is the simplest form. So but in NCERT they shows in a different form. Let me write the pattern the way they shows in the NCERT. So this soil solution is absorbed by the producers. So producers in the absorb agate, and some amount of this phosphate is lost in the form of runoff water, okay. So water ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ಡಿಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಆಗಿ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಗೆ ಅವೈಲೇಬಲ್ ಆಗದೇ ಇರೋ ತರ ಸೆಟ್ಲ್ ಆಗಿಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ರನ್ ಆಫ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಇದು ಕೈಗೆ ಸಿಗಲ್ಲ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಗಳಿಗೆ, ಓಕೆ. ಸೊ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸರ್ಸ್ ಇಂದ ಇಟ್ ರೀಚಸ್ consumers. So consumers in the detritus. So again detritus in the, it become soil solution. Okay. At the same time, so producers in the litter, ಇದು ಮತ್ತೆ detritus, litter fall. ಅಂದರೆ ಲೀಫ್ ಫಾಲ್ ಆದಾಗ ಮತ್ತೆ ಲೀಫ್ ಡೆಟ್ರೈಟಿಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅಥವಾ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಹತ್ತೋದಾಗಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಡೆಟ್ರೈಟಿಸ್ ಆಗಿ ಇಟ್ ಕನ್ವರ್ಟೆಡ್ ಇಂಟು ಸಾಯಿಲ್ ಸೊಲ್ಯೂಷನ್, ರಿಸಾಲ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ ದ ವಾಟರ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಬಿಕಮ್ ದ ಸಾಯಿಲ್ ಸೊಲ್ಯೂಷನ್. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ ಹೌ ದ ಫಾಸ್ಫೇಟ್ ಸೈಕಲ್ in the atmosphere as a sedimentary cycle, because the reservoir for this phosphate is soil as a rock phosphate. So weathering of rock ಆಗಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ phosphate is released into the soil, that is utilized, absorbed by the plants, and it transferred that into animals. Okay. So this is about the nutrient cycling. So we studied two types of nutrient cycling, gaseous cycle and sedimentary cycle. Example for gaseous cycle is carbon cycle, and a nitrogen cycle is also there, and you studied that in the first year. And for sedimentary cycle, phosphate is the example. So this diagrammatic manner for representation of phosphate cycle is asked for 2 marks or 3 marks question. And the amount of nutrient present in any trophic level in a given time is called as a standing state. At the same time, the amount of biomass present in each trophic level is called as a standing crop. Don't get confused with the standing state and standing crop. Standing crop is for biomass, standing state is for nutrients. Okay. Thank you.